Alright guys, I appreciate you guys coming down here on this nice day and taking your time to listen to my testimony. So, and we're from Old Pass Baptist Church, and we just come out here every third Sunday, and we come down here to visit you guys, and we just bring the Word of God and hopefully lift up your guys' days. And so, growing up in my family, you know, there was no church around. We didn't go to church. I mean, we stopped into church, but it was only to hit up the food pantry because, you know, Mom didn't have enough money to get any food. You know, I remember eating lots of beans. We had green beans, we had pork and beans, you know, all kinds of beans. I remember the government cheese, all that junk, you know, that's how we lived.
Real government cheese?
The real government cheese.
He's not playing. He's not playing.
But, you know, I don't remember my mom. She never held down a job. You know, there was no discipline in the house. It was pretty much a free-for-all. I mean, you know, every once in a while she'd wing a shoe at us, you know, to get our attention when we were doing something wrong. She never held down a job or anything. She sold weed to get by. That was normal in my family. My dad was an alcoholic. He smoked weed. My mom sold pot, you know, just to get by. And she made good money on it, you know. She was pushing pounds, quarter pounds, you know, here and there. Nothing major, but she was making money. And that was just the lifestyle I grew up around. You know, that was normal. I remember, you know, when we'd have to go to school, she'd kind of coach us, you know. If they ask, you know, if Mom smokes weed, you just tell them Mom smokes Cool Filter King. She coached us up, you know. That was fine. I was good with that. That was the lifestyle we lived. If I had friends over, you know, I'd have to make them wait at the door. I'd have to, you know, run through the house, spray Lysol because it always smelled like pot, or I'd have to go check the ashtray for roaches and just make sure the house was clean so they wouldn't go back and, you know, tattletales to their parents or anything. You know, my mom always raised me up, you know, snitches get put in ditches and all that stuff, you know, and we had that loyalty. And that's just how we were raised, and it was a good childhood. I loved it, you know, I loved doing whatever I wanted. I loved getting on my bike and just, you know, riding, you know, 3 miles, the quick trip, and just doing whatever I want, you know, cussing out my mom, acting a fool. Well, middle school came around, you know, and it was cool to smoke pot then. And I started getting, you know, into pot, smoking, and I was like, okay, well, I don't have to go too far, you know. My mom's got the best weed on the block. So, you know, I just had to run over to her room, you know, first it was just, you know, getting joints here and there to smoke with the friends, and then it got, you know, I started selling weed for her, not to make any money, really. It was just to make my own weed, you know. I sold weed and stuff, but I was my own best customer, so I never really made no money off the thing. I was just making, you know, stuff to smoke. So I got into weed real heavy, and I wouldn't go to school really. If I went to school, it was to kind of strum up people to come back to my house, you know, buy some weed, or hey, we're gonna have a party, let's do this thing, let's roll. And you know, I was out. I wasn't going there to learn. By the time I was 15, I had a child. I think I was in 8th grade. You know, walking down the halls, had a girl pregnant. You know, it was pretty crazy, but it never got my attention. Around the age of 15, I lived in Johnson County, Kansas, and the doors got kicked in because, you know, you're selling weed out there and they're watching pretty tough. So the doors got kicked in, you know, they didn't really find much, not enough to really do anything, but, you know, the house was hot, so we kind of had to leave. And then my mom was like, okay, you're going to go with Dad. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. Dad drinks, you know, now I can start drinking with him and living it up over there. So I lived with my dad, and, you know, we were drinking, smoking, same old thing, same old story, but, you know, he was using a Coke. It was called Freebase, and it was smoking crack. But I started getting into that with it real heavy, and I developed a habit, man. I couldn't shake it. You know, I'd go, and, you know the difference between a crackhead and a meth head? A crackhead will take your stuff, you won't see him again. A meth head, they'll take your stuff and help you look for it. And I was a crackhead. I was taking your stuff, you know, and I was scamming you. I was talking you out of 20 bucks to go do this and that, and because I wanted to get high, and I didn't care about no one except myself, you know. And I was still smoking weed and drinking, but that wasn't a problem. That was normal, you know. That was fine. You know, I had to have my weed, had to have my blunts, my beer. That was just normal. But now I was getting into the heavy stuff. And I had this monkey on my back for like 6, 7 years, man, just chasing after crack every day, hundreds of dollars. Anytime I get money in my pocket, I was taking it and I was blowing it, you know. And by that time, I had like 3 kids. And, you know, I was choosing crack over everything. I had a girlfriend, and, you know, I was just treating her, you know, as a worldly man would treat his girl, you know, taking advantage of her, you know, bringing other women into the relationship and just doing it my way. That's what I was doing. That's what I was doing. I ruined good relationships that way too. You know, good women, just screwed them up, turned them out, and just made a mess of them if I look back now, you know. And so I was about, 20 years old, and I was looking at my life, and I was a crackhead, I never thought I'd come to this point. Not me, I might have snorted coke here and there, but now I'm smoking crack, and people look down on that. And so I'm just, I'm smoking that crack, and afterwards when it's gone, I'm so down on myself. I'm like, man, I'm sick of this, I'm sick of this, and I'm getting drunk. I'm sick of this. I'm really sick of this. And so I was in and out of jail once or twice a year at least, and it was nothing serious, 3 months here, a month there, a week here. They'd put me on probation. I could do the probation until they said, okay, you need to come in and drop a UA. I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to be there. Or I could do it until they're like, well, you need to pay this $30 each month for intervention fees. I was like, well, I can't do that, but I can report to you here and there if you want me to. That's about it. So, I was always running from the law, and then in order to wing myself off the crack, I started using meth, and I got into meth real heavy. I mean, your homies out there messing with your girlfriend, all kinds of stuff. There's no loyalty out there. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so I started getting into that, and once again, I'm in and out of jail my whole life. I go to jail, and I take trips to jail here and there, and, I never didn't believe in God. I never said, God, I don't believe you exist. There's a couple times I look back where I went as far as to say, screw you guys, you're doing this to me and this and that, and I was blaming things on God. Well, I'd go into church services and in jail just to get out of my cell, really, I was like, okay, well, if they're going to let me out of the cell for a little bit, I'll go see what it's about. And, they do all that stuff and that, fluffy stuff, talking about the love of God and, this and that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that works for them, but, that's not going to work for a guy like me, not me. Not at all. I'd just get back out and I'd hit the streets. When I'd get in there and I'd sober up and I'd get out and I'd have the motivation. I thought, okay, I'm going to do right. I'm going to do right by my kids and this and that. And I'd go for about a good 3 weeks, but I'd start hanging out with the same old crowd, more. And one thing was on my mind, and that was, how am I going to get my next shot? How can I, bust a couple serves, make a little bit of money, in order to get some more money to get high. That was the outcome of my day. I'm making more money, but I'm doing it to get high. It was just a never-ending circle, day to day. And so, I went to jail, and it was always catch me if you can. If the cops got behind me, I wasn't stopping because I didn't want to go to jail. I tried to elude them as long as I can. There was high-speed chases, it was giving fake names, whatever I had to do, the okie doke, just to get away from them. I didn't care. I just didn't want to go back to jail because I hated that alone time with myself, man. It hurt me because you're up in there, you're in that cell, and you're in your head a lot, and you're like, man, you're thinking, you're taking inventory on your life, man, like, what is going on here? So I hated those lonely nights in the jail cell. So, it was catch me if you can. And so, well, they did catch me like they always do, and I ended up going to jail, and I knew I was facing some time then because I'd skipped my probation so many times, and they give you a backup sentence. They say, well, we're going to give you, but there's a loophole. You can say, well, I'm a Christian, I want a Bible, because I wanted something to read. I wanted to kill some time. And I remember, I'm just up in that cell, and I'm in my head just thinking about how much of a piece of crap I was, and how I just used and abused everybody. And, I'm in there and I'm making this promise to God. I'm like, Lord, get me out of here and I'll change my ways. I'll sober up and I'll do this and that. I was lying like I've done so many times to God because I knew I wasn't going to stay sober. But I was using God as an scapegoat, something, get me out and I'll do this. And then when he got me out, I'm running. And I opened up that Bible and I started, reading. And there was this verse in there, and it just came out, and it slayed me, man. It said, why callest thou me Lord, Lord, and do not the things I say unto you? And it just hit me, man. That was me, I'm sitting here calling on the Lord, but I've never once gotten his book. I've never once done what he said, And so it convicted me, and I just started to cry that night. I was like, you know what, Lord? I don't care if you get me out or what. I just want to do this your way. I'm done doing it my way. This is what my way has got me. This is where I'm at today. This is what I got. And I brought it to the Lord. And I didn't know what I was doing that night, but if I look back now that I know my Bible, Romans 10:9 says, if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in thy heart that God has raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. I got saved that night, man, and, Jesus stepped out of the pages of that Bible. He began to do time with me. And, you know, I even got out of jail, and I went back into the dope and the drugs because I didn't change the multitude, and I went back into prison, and I pulled 2 years because I wanted to go mess back with the drugs. And when I went back and I started to do my 2 years, I knew what time it was. I knew it was time to get right with God, and I was like, okay, God, I'm going to get in that Bible, and I'm going to apply that Bible. I'm not just going to be a hearer of the Word, I'm going to be a doer of the Word. And you know, one of the greatest things when you're in jail is getting a letter. I mean, the day you get out is the best day, but when you get a letter from the outside world, you know, that's awesome. You're in there doing backflips like, man, I hope my girl wrote me, I wonder, maybe they are thinking about me, they do care, you know, and you get that thing, you hear that guard, he's like, Stevenson, you got mail, and you're like, really? You know, I do? And you're up in your room waiting eagerly for that guard to come up there and slip that letter through your little chuck hole. And you begin to tear that thing open, you know, and you look on the front and you see, you know, oh man, my old lady wrote me, my mom wrote me, whoever. And you begin to get joy and you start reading that thing and you find that comfort in that letter. And you know, well, the same thing, man, God wrote us a letter. He wrote us a book, 66 letters to be exact. He wrote them to you personally, you know. But why don't we get in that book? Why don't we read that book? Why don't we apply that book? We get excited if someone in the world writes us a letter, but the creator of the universe, he wrote us a book. He wrote you a love letter, sent it down from heaven. The Bible says you're a prisoner to this world, you know, until Jesus Christ comes and redeems you, if you're saved. If not, you're going to hell, you know. But if you're saved, Jesus Christ is going to come back and redeem you one day. And Paul said, I'm an ambassador in bonds, you know, for Jesus Christ's sake. He was a prisoner to this world, you know, but he had a love letter. He had a letter from the Lord, and he got in that letter, and he read that letter, and not just reading it, but applying it. And that's why I'm up here today talking to you guys. I was here. I was in these places. I was never here because I could always hustle up money, and I could go with the homies, and I could get high, and they'd keep me around if I had dope. But I was homeless. I didn't have nothing. I stepped out of prison with my blues on. Nothing else. No one to help me. That book put my life together. I got a church, I got a book, and I'm standing here now and I'm telling you guys my testimony, and it does work. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. Jesus says, come to me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. He doesn't say, you know, go clean up and then come talk to me. He says, no, come on, we're going to clean up along the way, you know, and here's a book. So I appreciate you guys listening to me. I hope it was a blessing for you guys.